Okay. Are you ready?
As ready as I'm gonna be.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to First Novel Problems. I am Abby Mathews. I am the guide on this journey. And with me is
I am Brooke Tannehill, the complete novice, have no idea what I'm doing, and I am fully accepting Abby's guidance and advice on how to write my first book.
wow. I'm excited that today we're going to talk a little bit about genre. And I know it's not always a popular place to start.
Mhm.
Um, which I really don't understand why some people don't embrace it as fully as I think they might, or they perhaps should. And I'm hoping that we can get you to embrace your genre because ultimately, especially for your first book, it's going to be your guide, not me. We're going
Mhm.
to let genre be your guide about how you're going to lay out this story, how you're going to plan it, how you're going to execute it in a way that will satisfy a reader. So if you are a writer whose ultimate goal is to satisfy a reader, genre is your best friend.
Yes. And I know I'm gonna get so many well, I shouldn't say I know. I feel like I'm gonna get so many eye rolls because I feel like I'm picking like a basic
Mm-mm,
genre.
you're not.
Guys, it's not fantasy, it's not romance, but I'm actually excited about it because it's where I've spent most of my reading time. So I'm super excited to dive in.
I think it's weird that that's where you've spent most of your reading time, yet you think it's a basic genre. I wouldn't.
Oh, because I totally need basics, especially when it comes to reading, because I feel like, well, you're a mom, you completely understand this. There's being a mother of four, it's always so chaotic. There's always so much just going on that when I want to read, it's to escape. And it is so I don't have to track what 100,000th character is in what planet using what method of magic, who's has 200 enemies. So I don't like that. And I like also stories that are relatable. So that's really where my heart lies.
Okay, so you said the magic word that is actually going to transition us into this genre discussion today, because the genre that we've sort of swirled around, tiptoed around, but we finally kind of rested on is not necessarily just book club fiction, but we're going to lean into women's fiction. And that is sometimes a contentious genre because there are many women who take this feminist stance of like, we don't, why is that a genre when, men's fiction is not a genre, but women's fiction is? Why can't we just all be fiction, which is true, but we're going to sort of lean into this because this is going to give you as a first time writer a way to sort of it's a model for your story. Okay. So, regardless of how you feel about women's fiction as a genre in general, we are going to lean into it. And so, there are a couple of things about this genre designation that I think are going to work in your favor. All right. And you've kind of hit on this already because the non negotiable piece of women's fiction is that it's about a woman's internal journey or
Yeah.
arc of change. That part is non negotiable. So if you take out that internal arc of change and the story falls apart, right? We don't, that's not going to fall into women's fiction. Like
Mhm.
if it's just plot, you have to have that internal arc. So like writing middle grade, I don't always have an internal arc that happens. Some of the stuff that I write is just very plot driven. This one is not. So, non negotiable, you've got to have that internal arc. That's the first thing. Second thing, usually we're talking about women between the ages of 30 and 60 as your main character. And the thing that people are reading for, right, is they want to recognize themselves, or they want to recognize someone that they know, in that main character. So you said it yourself, relatable. You want to read something that is relatable to you. And generally, it's a character that is at a pivot point in their life, right? So, divorce, death, empty nest, their career collapses. So there's some sort of pivot point that that character is facing. All right. Now, romance and relationships. Let's talk about this. So in women's fiction, romance can be a subplot, but
Mhm.
it is the main plot. You are no longer writing women's fiction. You are writing straight up romance.
Well, and I think that was like a big thing that like we uncovered because like when I took the quiz, one of the questions was, could you kill off the love interest and it would still work? Absolutely. And I've been told that I've got to at least kill off one person. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but maybe we save it for this. I've got to write, what is it, 316 books this year?
You did
Um,
know that. So, kill him off. There you go. That solves the happily ever after with the romance thread. You kill off the love interest. So, but it's usually about relationships. So mothers, daughters, friends, they can be very complicated relationships, but generally a relationship is going to be kind of central to the plot and the emotional arc of this. Okay. So besides the relationships, the stakes, the stakes in this novel are going to be personal. No one
okay.
is saving the world here. Okay. So this is not like an epic fantasy. This is going to be a small, it could be quieter. It doesn't have to be, but the stakes are going to be incredibly personal to your main character. Now, speaking of characters, setting is often treated almost like character in women's fiction. Now, we had sort of talked about at one point historical fiction, right? And using the 1920s and having this like really rich world. But ultimately, you said that's going to take you down a research rabbit hole that might become a procrastination technique to finishing the book. So we're going to eliminate that. And when did you decide to set yours in? Like we talked about late 90s and early 2000s. Have you made
I think that's where I'm going to land.
okay.
That's where I'm going to lean in for
So
sure.
your setting as a character, you can really lean into a little bit of a nostalgic vibe while the world still looks totally recognizable. And I think you're going to be able to make your setting a character pretty easily.
Okay. Yeah, I'm taking notes. I know.
I know I see you writing and I'm like, why are you writing? Because this is being recorded. You can
You know, it is being recorded. So I am like one of those weirdos that even in college, I would rewrite my notes. It just helps me retain information. And I know everybody that likes watching this, probably like, what are you doing? But it just helps me. So
no judgment. No judgment. We'll let you go. Yeah. Okay, so the last piece that I want to talk about is the ending. And they usually lean towards hopeful, but it doesn't have to be super tidied up. Like everything doesn't have to be tied up and wrapped up in a nice bow and everybody lives happily ever after. You can just kind of end on this note of hope. So all of this that we've talked about so far, is there anything that I've said that you're like, ooh, I don't think that's going to fit my story?
no, and I think that's one of the reasons why it was great to go through like the first genre exercise, because when we were leaning into like historical fiction or historical romance, there were just different components that didn't fit. And so I think with going this route, it's going to make finishing the book easier, but also allowing me to write at my pay grade again without going into just like some of the other ones. So no, I think this aligns perfectly.
So one of the things, speaking of writing above your pay grade, so one of the things that I do think you're going to have to consider for this is potentially using like a dual timeline.
I've already thought of that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because one of the things that you had mentioned was it needs to be a woman between 30 and 60, whereas I had wanted to start out with it's almost like a flashback to the 18th birthday. And that's where like this whole story starts. So
Okay.
I think so the story that I want to do, and it scares me because I think it adds a complexity to it, there has to be a dual timeline.
And I can walk you through how to make that work. So
Okay.
don't let that be it's going to be a little harder than just a straight linear, start to finish, starts on a Monday, ends on a Friday sort of thing. Like it won't be quite that neat. But if you think about it, like think about your brain over the course of the day and think
Oh, that's
about
looking
how
at
many times your brain jumps back to some memory of something that happened in the past, whether it was last week, whether it was 10 years ago. But your brain naturally does that anyway. And what we're going to do is show you how to, in a story, emulate that so that it makes sense to the reader and it makes sense to the storyline as well.
Yeah, and I almost feel like that should almost be its own episode because the
Sure.
last thing I want is writing my book, and I don't know how many other people feel this or are afraid, but I don't want people getting whiplash, and I don't want people like, wait, where are we? Who's talking? So I want to make sure that I do it in a way that intuitive but almost seamless. So I'm
There are
yeah.
tricks. There are tricks that you can use to make that happen. And they're very simple, but when you execute them well, it will be very elegant and very seamless.
I
So,
feel like I've made that face a lot, but I'm like, I'm excited, but I don't know. Like it's becoming real, if that makes sense. And like dive into this. So
okay. So here's where we're going to sort of end. All right. Because the spread in women's fiction is pretty wide. It
okay.
can go all the way from like a beach read feeling kind of book, right? All the way to something that's kind of literary adjacent.
Mhm.
So have a really wide spread. It's not romance, right? So we know that. It's not going to be domestic suspense, right? So as soon as we feel like the underlying emotion through the whole thing is like danger or she's on the run, like that would kind of tell us, okay, we're leaning towards a different genre, right? It's going to be all just very much this internal, arc of change for your main character. We're going to take a woman from here to here, and we're going to show everyone her journey. So if that sits well with you, I think we've found our genre.
No, it's crazy going through these exercises because it's 100% where this story that's in my mind needs to be. So
Well, let's come back next episode and we're going to talk a little bit about trope in the women's fiction genre. And again, tropes are another dirty word like genre. And I don't know why, because it's kind of like, they're tropes for a reason. I mean, they're things that pop up constantly in the genre, but everyone puts their own experience behind the trope to make it its own thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the tropes are. I'm going to read to you like a list of tropes. I'm going to let you pick out the ones that you think are going to apply to this story. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to make those your own.
yeah, I'm excited. And also for anybody watching this, I want to make sure that you're seeing that this is not specific to women's fiction. Like these exercises that we're going through, I think that they are truly valuable because like what Abby and I talked about, we started on historical fiction. Then we kind of like, well, is it historical romance? So I think going through these exercises, it's applicable to any genre. It's just making sure that you're finding the right one for the story you want to tell. So I just wanted to reiterate that so people don't think, oh, there's talking women's fiction. This isn't applicable.
No, and that's a great point. And what I would suggest if you are watching and following along and you are at the same point in your journey as Brooke, one of the things that I would say to do is just go do a quick Google search. whatever it is that you think your genre is, do a Google search, genre requirements for, and then put your genre in. And a list will come up. I mean, you could go read a bunch of different articles, but now it's like the AI will just summarize it. And if you kind of look through that summary of genre requirements and you're like, what? No, no, what? You know, you're probably not in the right genre, and you can kind of do a little research until you find one that you're like, oh, yeah, that feels like my story. Oh, yeah, this feels like my story. And like I said, this is just going to be a guide. You don't have to hit every single one of these. You just have to be in the same ballpark as these. Again, this is an art, not a science, right? This is like cooking, not baking. You don't have to get it precise. You just have to get it close. So we will end on that note, and we will see everybody next time when we talk about the tropes.
All right. I'll trust you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.